I couldn't shake the feeling something was wrong the moment I spotted that unfamiliar airline email lurking in her inbox. It was a random Tuesday afternoon, a grey sky pressing against our apartment windows, when I happened to glance at her open laptop on the dining table. She'd stepped away to take a phone call, leaving her screen lit in that brief, unguarded moment. I know it was a breach of privacy. One glance at an open inbox might not normally mean much, but the subject line said it all: flight confirmation, your upcoming trip details. My heart fluttered and then sank, a cold rush of dread. She never mentioned any trip to me. Where was she going? And why keep it secret? Little did I know that a single email would detonate a string of revelations, testing every ounce of trust and affection we'd built in our life together. I'm Rory, and I've lived with Morgan for nearly 2 years in a modest, sun-drenched condo not far from downtown. We share a relatively quiet life. She's a corporate accountant, meticulous and hardworking. I manage a local music venue, handling bookings and backstage logistics. Our schedules can be hectic, but we usually find time for each other, cooking lazy dinners or catching up on Netflix shows on weekend afternoons. For the most part, we respect boundaries, like not rummaging through each other's phones or personal accounts. Yet that day, as I glimpsed an email titled Flight Confirmation, an unstoppable wave of curiosity and confusion gripped me. I can't remember exactly how many seconds passed before I succumbed to the urge to click on it. She'd left her email open, presumably not thinking I'd see it. But one quick glance wouldn't hurt, right? The subject line glared up at me in bold letters, stoking the embers of suspicion. If she was planning a trip, it'd be normal to tell me, especially if it meant leaving town or incurring major expenses. So many questions churned in my brain. Was it a business trip she forgot to mention? A surprise for me? Or something else entirely? My pulse hammered as I tapped the subject. The message revealed a flight departure date about 3 weeks from now, departing from our local airport early in the morning, heading to a city halfway across the country. Return flight? The email mentioned a one-way ticket. The confirmation also indicated an upgraded seat, something typically pricey. My eyes flicked over the passenger name, Morgan K. The same name on her credit cards, so definitely her booking, not a mix-up. No mention of why or with whom. My heart pounded. She'd purchased a single one-way plane ticket to a distant city, no mention of returning, no hint in the email about a group or special event. A wave of dread spiked in my chest. I quickly backed out of her email, feeling both guilt and panic. She could walk in any moment and catch me snooping. My mind swirled with questions. Why would she buy a one-way ticket? Why hide it from me? My imagination leapt to the worst scenarios. Was she planning to leave me, run off with someone else, or vanish from her current life? For the rest of that afternoon, I stumbled around in a daze. Morgan returned from her call, smiling easily, oblivious to the storm brewing in my head. I forced a smile back, every nerve on edge. The cold weight of that flight confirmation felt like a physical presence in the room. Days passed. I wrestled with how to confront her. She didn't mention any upcoming travel or special plans. At night, we'd watch TV or chat about her day at the office, about my upcoming concerts at the venue. She seemed normal, affectionate even. I scanned for signs of deception, more phone calls in private, suspicious text messages, unusual credit card usage. But she mostly stuck to her usual habits. Meanwhile, I was racked with anxiety, waiting for her to slip up and mention the trip. Finally, I reached a breaking point. One evening, as we prepped a simple dinner of pasta and salad, I mustered the nerve to bring up the topic. I slid the pot of boiling water off the stove, took a breath, and said casually, "So, have you been traveling for work anytime soon?" My voice trembled more than I intended. She glanced over from chopping tomatoes. "No. Why do you ask?" I dried my palms on a towel, heart pounding. I was curious if any business trips were on the horizon. You used to go for audits once in a while, right? She paused, eyebrows knitting slightly. Yeah, occasionally. But not recently. My team's local for now. Then she resumed chopping, as if the conversation were no big deal. My stomach twisted. I'd hoped she'd seize the moment to come clean. Instead, she brushed it off, which only fed my suspicion. I forced a nod, plastering on a faux casual tone. Gotcha. I guess I just wondered if you had something planned and forgot to tell me. She looked up, faint confusion in her gaze. No. Why? There was a flicker in her eyes, though, something like wariness. Feeling cornered, I shook my head. No reason. Just curious, I guess. Then I turned away, letting the conversation die. My heart hammered, certain she was lying. She had to be. The question was, why? That night, after she fell asleep, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the flight confirmation in my mind. If she'd planned a romantic getaway or secret birthday surprise for me, it wouldn't be a one-way ticket in her name alone. If it was purely for business, she'd likely mention it, or there'd be more details about a corporate travel itinerary. So either it was personal, or something else. My mind conjured ominous possibilities. Maybe she was fleeing from something, or she'd found a new job in another city, planning to relocate without telling me. Could she have a secret family emergency she was too ashamed to share? The uncertainty gnawed at my sanity. Over the next week, I adopted a watchful approach, paying more attention to her phone calls, seeing if she left the room to talk. She didn't, not noticeably. She continued her routine, waking early, heading to the office, returning around 6, exhausted from spreadsheets and numbers, but still up for a glass of wine or a chat. Yet I noticed an undercurrent of tension, as if she was preoccupied with something. She'd zone out more frequently, tapping at her phone or laptop. If I casually approached, she'd close windows quickly, or set her phone face down on the table. The secrecy grated on my nerves. I considered snooping more thoroughly, but guilt held me back. The one time I glimpsed her email was already a boundary crossed. But the worry consumed me. One day, while rummaging for my keys on the kitchen counter, I spotted her phone momentarily unlocked. My pulse spiked. If I was quick, I might confirm whether she told anyone else about the trip or see if there were messages referencing the flight. My conscience warred with my desperation for answers. In the end, I hesitated too long. She walked in from the bedroom, grabbing her phone before I made a move. My last chance to stealthily gather info evaporated. Finally, with the alleged flight date looming, I decided to follow her. If she was leaving me behind, or had some clandestine plan, maybe I could catch her in the act. That morning arrived, crisp and early. She told me the night before that she had an early meeting, and might have to rush out. My heart hammered as her alarm blared at 5 a.m. She stumbled out of bed, yawning, claiming she needed to get to the office by 7 o'clock. That made little sense. Her office was 20 minutes away, not 2 hours. I pretended to doze, heart pounding, as she quietly dressed in comfortable clothes, not her usual business attire, stuffed something into a small overnight bag, and tiptoed out. This was it. She was about to catch that flight, presumably. Slipping out of bed, I threw on jeans and a hoodie, then hurried to my car, determined to follow her. I kept a safe distance as she drove across town toward the airport. My hands trembled on the steering wheel. Sure enough, she parked in the short-term lot, grabbed that small bag, and headed inside. My stomach churned. She was definitely leaving. But for how long? Why? I found a parking space, practically sprinted to the terminal. Keeping back, I watched her approach the security line. She fiddled with her phone, glancing around nervously. At that moment, my emotions exploded in a swirl of betrayal, sadness, and, oddly, relief that I'd finally see the truth. Mustering my courage, I stepped forward, weaving through the crowd. She turned, eyes widening in shock as she spotted me. A flush of color lit her cheeks. She parted her lips, but no words came out. I approached, voice unsteady. "Morgan, what's going on? You're flying somewhere. Why didn't you tell me?" She held her bag close to her chest, scanning my face with guilt. "Rory? I can explain." My anger flared. "I sure hope so. Because from where I stand, you're sneaking out of town on a one-way ticket, not telling me a damn thing. Are you leaving me?" She swallowed, tears gathering in her eyes. "No. It's not what you think. I'm not leaving you. I'm going to see someone. Something. Please, let's step aside, I'll tell you everything." We moved away from the security queue, finding a quieter corner. My heart hammered so loud I thought everyone around could hear. "Start talking," I said, voice trembling with raw emotion. She exhaled shakily. "It's my father. You know how I said he left me and my mom when I was a kid? Well, he reached out a few months ago, said he wanted to reconnect. I was skeptical, but then last week, I got a call. He's extremely ill. He asked me to come see him, said it might be his last chance to apologize face to face." She paused, tears slipping down her cheeks. "He sent me the money for the one-way flight. I didn't want to use our account. He insisted on paying, said he'd arrange my return once we talked. I was terrified to tell you." I blinked, confusion roiling. "Why terrified? I'd support you visiting your sick father. Why hide it from me?" This isn't some shady thing. She wiped her tears with the back of her hand. I was worried you'd think I was insane for wanting to see the man who abandoned me. Or that you'd be angry at me for using time off work to meet him. We had that argument once about my family issues, how you said I carried too much baggage with them. I guess I was scared of your judgment or your pity. So I planned to slip away, handle it alone, then come back and pretend it never happened. It was cowardly, I know. My tension eased slightly, replaced by heartbreak. She wasn't cheating or leaving me for good, she was confronting a painful family matter. Morgan, you could have told me. I wouldn't have judged you. I'd worry, sure, but I'd be here for you. She let out a choked sob. I'm sorry. I didn't want you to see me so vulnerable. My father's dying, apparently, and he says he regrets everything. I didn't even know how to face him, let alone explain it to you. So I bought a ticket, or rather, he bought it for me. I lied about the meeting so I could slip away. But I'm not moving or running. I plan to come home after a few days, hopefully with some closure. My breath released in a shudder. This was so different from the betrayal scenario I'd conjured. Compassion warred with leftover anger. When were you going to tell me you were gone for multiple days? Or did you plan to vanish? She looked miserable. I was going to text you once I landed, say there was an emergency with a friend. I know, horrible plan. I just froze, felt stuck in my own shame. She closed her eyes. I messed up. A swirl of relief, sadness, and frustration flooded me. Part of me wanted to scold her for the secrecy, another part recognized the depth of her fear. Morgan, I said quietly, I'm not going to stand here and say it's okay you lied. But I get that family stuff can be complicated. Let me help you, or at least let me be aware of what you're going through. She sniffled, reaching out to grasp my hand. I'm so sorry. If you can forgive me, I'd love your support. I can't do this alone. Tears stung my eyes. My anger dissolved, replaced by empathy. I pulled her into a hug, ignoring the curious stares of travelers hurrying by. Her shoulders shook, tension releasing in a wave. Of course, I murmured. You can't face a dying parent by yourself. Let me be there for you, even if it's just emotional support from here. She hesitated. Would you, maybe come with me? I know it's short notice, and you have the venue. Without hesitation, I nodded. Yes. Let's see if I can get on your flight, or catch another one. We'll figure it out. Her eyes widened, relief mixing with gratitude. Really? But it's only a one-way ticket. My father said he'd buy the return once we decide how long to stay. Are you sure you can just up and go? I took a shaky breath. I'll call my assistant manager, ask them to handle the bookings for a few days. This is important. I won't let you do it alone. The warmth in her eyes spoke volumes. We walked to the airline counter together, hand in hand, explaining the situation to the agent. Fortunately, they had seats available on the same flight. We purchased my one-way ticket with my card, though I was still uneasy about the open-ended plan. Morgan texted her father to say she was bringing me. He responded with a short but polite acknowledgement. Then we stood, hearts pounding, as we made our way through security. The tension between us felt electric, a swirl of adrenaline and emotion. She was heading into a painful confrontation with her estranged dad, and I was stepping into the unknown with her, bridging the gap she tried to hide. Once on the plane, we barely spoke. She clutched my hand, glancing out the window as the city shrank below us. I tried to quell the swirl of conflicting feelings, relief that she wasn't leaving me forever, annoyance at her secrecy, sadness for her father's grim condition. After a couple hours in the air, we landed in the city where her father lived, a place I'd never visited. As we navigated the terminal, she got a call from an unknown number, presumably her father or someone close to him. She answered softly, exchanging a few hushed words. Then she turned to me, voice trembling, "He's at a hospice center. We need to get there ASAP." My chest tightened. So he was indeed near the end. We caught a taxi, and in that 30-minute ride, she haltingly explained more about their past. He'd walked out on her mother when Morgan was only 6. Sporadic child support followed, but no emotional presence. Morgan's mother struggled, remarried, and life went on. She'd carried resentment, built a life with me, but never spoke much about her dad. Now, apparently, he'd reappeared, claiming regret, hoping for forgiveness. Morgan was torn between residual anger and a sense of duty to hear him out before it was too late. We arrived at a humble hospice facility on the outskirts of town, plain walls, a small garden outside. The air felt thick with unspoken tensions. Morgan clung to my hand as we walked in, greeting a nurse who recognized her from phone calls. They led us to a private room. My heart pounded, uncertain how I'd handle meeting the father who caused her so much grief. Inside, the man lay in a hospital bed, an oxygen tube in his nose, eyes sunken. He perked up slightly when he saw Morgan, a faint flicker of recognition. She approached, tears in her eyes. "Dad," she managed. He offered a weak smile, voice raspy. "Morgie, you made it. And you brought?" She glanced my way, voice unsteady. "This is Rory, my partner. Fiancé, eventually." She shot me a shy half-smile, which warmed my heart even in this tense setting. Her father nodded, gaze drifting between us. "Thank you for coming," he murmured, extending a frail hand. Morgan hesitated, then took it gently. I stepped back, giving them space. The nurse quietly excused herself. It was a surreal moment, watching her father tear up, trying to express regret for the past. Morgan cried softly, releasing years of bitterness in choked fragments. He told her about the mistakes he made, the addictions he battled, how he'd found out about his terminal diagnosis too late for real treatment. Morgan listened, tears streaking her cheeks, occasionally shooting me helpless glances. I hovered close, offering silent support. We ended up staying at a nearby motel for the night. The father's condition was fragile, the nurses unsure if he'd survive more than a few days. Morgan spent hours at his bedside, letting him talk, grappling with her own sorrow and resentment. I saw the toll it took on her. She'd returned to our motel room emotionally spent, sometimes shaking with sobs. I held her, whispering reassurances, grateful she let me be there instead of pushing me away. The secrecy from before felt like a distant wound compared to the raw pain of confronting mortality and shattered family ties. On the second day, I gently asked Morgan if she wanted me to step out so she could have private conversations with her father. She gave me a watery smile, nodded, said she'd appreciate the space to talk about personal matters. I roamed the hospice garden, mind swirling with reflections on how drastically life had changed in just a day. One moment I was convinced she was leaving me, the next I was witnessing a profoundly intimate father-daughter reunion. The anger I'd felt about her secrecy now paled in comparison to the magnitude of this emotional healing. By the third day, her father's health deteriorated quickly. The doctors said the end was near. Morgan kept vigil at his bedside, clutching his hand as he slipped in and out of consciousness. I joined her, quietly. She introduced me properly, telling him bits about how we met, how we lived in a cozy apartment, how she found happiness despite her rocky childhood. He smiled faintly, tears gathering in his cloudy eyes, whispered an apology for never being there. She forgave him as best she could, tears sliding down her cheeks. He passed away that night, her hand still in his, a quiet exhale marking his final breath. Grief enveloped Morgan. Even though she'd harbored anger toward him for years, the finality of his death hit hard. She wept openly, leaning on me for comfort, guilt warring with relief that at least they'd spoken. My own heart broke for her, wishing I could have spared her the pain. Over the next couple of days, she handled minimal funeral details, discovering he had almost no one else, no partner, no close friends. We arranged a simple cremation, performed a small memorial at the hospice chapel with just the staff, me, and Morgan. She gave a brief eulogy, acknowledging the complicated father-daughter bond, expressing hope that his soul found peace. In the midst of this, we never forgot the circumstances that brought us here. More than once, Morgan would turn to me, eyes red, and say, "I'm so sorry for lying about everything." I'd hold her gently, reassure her that I understood her fear, that we'd move forward together. The fiasco with the flight confirmation was overshadowed by the raw emotional experience of her father's passing. In a strange way, it bound us tighter, forging a deeper trust forged in crisis. After we finalized the paperwork and said our last farewells, we booked a flight home, together, a proper round trip for me, and for her, ironically, a new ticket after that original one-way had served its purpose. On the plane, we sat side by side, her head resting on my shoulder, hands clasped. She'd gaze out the window at the clouds, lost in thought. Occasionally, she'd whisper, "Thank you for coming. I couldn't have done it alone." Each time, I squeezed her hand, my own heart tight with a blend of compassion and lingering sorrow. Returning to our apartment felt surreal. We left in secrecy and fear, we came back with a heavy but clear sense of closure. Morgan spent the next few days on compassionate leave from work. I arranged a flexible schedule at the venue to stay home with her, cooking comfort meals, letting her sleep in. She told me bits and pieces of her father's last words, his regrets, his fleeting memories of her as a toddler. She cried some more, I listened. We took slow walks by the river, letting the fresh air ease the tension. Eventually, we resumed normal life, though changed by the experience. Of course, the underlying issue of her secrecy had to be addressed. One evening, as we settled on the couch with tea, I gently brought it up. Morgan, I said softly, I don't want to dwell on negative stuff while you're grieving, but we need to talk about how you handled this. The lying. The hidden flight. She sighed, setting her mug down. I know, she replied, eyes sad. I never wanted to break your trust. I just panicked, thinking you'd forbid me or that you'd resent me for dropping everything to see the man who abandoned us. I brushed a lock of hair from her face. I would never forbid you from helping a dying relative, no matter how strained your relationship was. I might have been worried, or asked questions, but I'd have supported you. This was huge. I wanted to be there for you from the start. She nodded tearfully. I regret it so much. I was so used to dealing with my father's absence on my own. I guess I forgot I'm not alone anymore. You're here, wanting to stand by me. My chest tightened with emotion. Exactly. And it hurt me to discover the flight by accident, thinking you might be leaving me for good. That fear was awful. She took my hand, a shaky exhale leaving her lips. I'm so sorry for putting you through that. If I could go back, I'd tell you as soon as I learned about his diagnosis. I was in denial, not wanting to face my father's mortality or your possible disapproval. I squeezed her hand gently. Well, let's promise each other to be honest about big things, even if they're scary. We can handle tough stuff better together. She nodded firmly, tears shining. Promise. That promise set the tone for our relationship's next chapter. Grief and relief intermingled, but we found a strengthened bond in the aftermath. Over time, the memory of that flight confirmation stung less as it became a story of how love overcame fear and secrecy. Occasionally, we'd mention it in passing, like, remember the day I nearly lost my mind seeing that one-way ticket in your email? And we'd share a sad smile, recalling the roller coaster of emotions that followed. In the months that followed, Morgan processed her father's death, eventually reaching a fragile kind of peace. She kept a small memento from his hospice, a letter he wrote her in his final days, expressing love and regret. She read it to me once, her voice trembling. I held her while she cried anew. Each tear reminded me how precious honesty is, how important it is to share burdens rather than bearing them alone out of misplaced fear. Now, if someone were to ask me about that fiasco, a flight confirmation popped up in her email, but she never told him about a trip, I'd explain it wasn't about betrayal or escapism. It was about a daughter grappling with a father's final plea, a woman so haunted by the past that she felt she had to handle it alone, inadvertently hurting the person she loved. We overcame it by confronting the truth in an airport terminal, ironically the very place she sought to slip away unnoticed. In that confrontation, we forged a deeper closeness, one tested by sorrow but anchored in mutual devotion. And that's how life can be sometimes, a single email subject line enough to shift your entire world, an unexpected journey revealing deeper truths about love, family, and the power of vulnerability. We emerged from it changed, hopefully for the better, Morgan less afraid to show me her hidden scars, me more aware that I need to approach her secrets with compassion rather than suspicion. We still share a modest condo, cook lazy dinners, and tease each other about future travels. But now, when the subject of flights or trips arises, we exchange knowing looks, remembering the episode that taught us how quickly illusions can crumble, and how precious it is to have someone beside you when they do.